Thank you very much, Dan. Good afternoon to everyone. I am Susan Wingfield and I'm a Program Officer with the Secretariat. One of my responsibilities is to coordinate the work on the country-led initiative, which I'll be speaking about more in a moment. Very nice to see so many attendees today. I have to say we had a similar webinar on Tuesday and the numbers were far fewer, so I'm very pleased to see so many participating with interest. Just looking at the outline of my presentation today. First of all, I'll just touch briefly on the mandate of the expert working group. Secondly, take a quick look at the ESM framework that was developed over the past couple of years, and then look closely at the first meeting of the expert working group that took place in December, just 1 month ago. And we'll look at the outcomes coming from that meeting. And then I'll look ahead to when the next meeting will be expected, and there will be plenty of time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation. So in terms of the mandate of this group, I will just take a step before the slide here and explain that this work really comes out of what is known as the Indonesian-Swiss country-led initiative to improve the effectiveness of the Basel Convention. Now, discussions to this regarding this initiative have been going on for several years and really culminated at COP10, or the 10th meeting of the Conference of the Parties of the Basel Convention, in an omnibus decision. Now, one of the sections of this decision related directly to the matter of environmentally sound management, particularly how to make environmentally sound management really more accessible to parties. It was noted that, of course, it's one of the key principles of the convention, and of course we have technical guidelines which elaborate on ESM for certain waste streams, but that more practical guidance might be needed. More practical on-the-ground activities might be required to help parties implement ESM. So therefore, this initiative was born. I'll go into the ESM framework on the next slide, but to suffice to say that an ESM framework was developed in the lead up to COP11, which took place earlier this year, and this was adopted in May by the 11th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump forward there. So, in terms of the work of the expert working group and its mandate, well, the mandate does come directly from the 11th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, and it is specifically to really take a step beyond this ESM framework that was developed and to look at what short-term work items could be developed and implemented, and then also to develop a longer-term work program, which would really chart the group's work from COP12 and beyond. The group was also requested that to make reports to both OEWG9 and COP12. Following COP11, a group was quickly established of 25 experts, 5 from each UN region. Meetings are open to observers, and we have had quite strong observer interest, and the group would be able to call on additional experts in its work. Now, going back to the ESM framework, I just mentioned that this was really the first step in this entire process with regards to initiatives on ESM. This framework was adopted by the COP the COP last year in May, and it was developed to address the challenges of implementing ESM of waste, so really to give a practical flavor to ESM. It establishes what should be understood by ESM, so what elements need to be considered when determining ESM, what tools might support its implementation, and what strategies could support it. So this was a very useful document that really took the dialogue on ESM further, but it was recognized, having developed this at COP11, that further action would be needed to really implement the framework in ESM in general. So, going to the first meeting of this expert working group that was established by COP11, well, I should say that actually the picture you see here is the first physical meeting of the group. The group did meet electronically at the end of September, really to plan its work so that it could do some background work in the lead up to the December meeting. And I'll explain a bit more about that in a moment. Suffice to say that the first physical meeting happened in December. Most of the experts were in attendance, in addition to 9 observers from industry and NGOs. Now, the objectives of the meeting were really to look at the work that was already done. So to, of course, revisit the ESM framework and the work that had been done electronically, as I mentioned, prior to the meeting, to decide what initial short-term actions should be taken should be implemented, and then to look forward to developing this longer-term work program. Now, what I'll do is I'll run through each of the outcomes of the expert working group, but to explain why these outcomes were reached, I thought it would be useful to link in the mandate from the COP11 decision to each outcome. So in terms of our first outcome, well, the mandate for this outcome really is the general mandate for the expert working group, which is to develop actions in the short term and a longer term work program to implement ESM. Now, the particular outcome in relation to this general mandate was that it was agreed that pilot projects would be developed and implemented in the short to medium term to both to demonstrate ESM and implement ESM. Now, it should be noted that it was foreseen that these would be fairly quick, small projects, just really demonstration projects that, of course, may be replicated in other regions. The group received 8 different project proposals from the members of the expert working group, and were able to essentially either merge project proposals, well, they were able to merge project proposals such that all of the proposals that were submitted were approved. So this was very positive. So in the period over the next few months, there will be few months and beyond, I should say, there will be 3 different pilot projects to be implemented. The first we'll look at, it's more of a procedural project looking at notification, consent and inspection procedures and whether these represent ESM. This project, the same methodology will be applied in 3 countries, Tanzania, Egypt and Madagascar. The second project is looking at e-waste in the Asia-Pacific region. This project will be led by the BCRC in China and will build on previous work already done on e-waste in Asia. And the third, which will be led by the BCRC in Central America, will be implemented in collaboration with partners in that region. So 3 pilot projects to start, the implementation of which will be reviewed at the second meeting of the expert working group, and the results of which will of course be shared at the open-ended working group and the conference of the parties. Next, the main, I guess you could say, the main mandate for the group, the expert working group, is to be found in the terms of reference of decision BC 11.1, and I refer the participants to Annex 2 of the decision, which really lists out all the items that the group should consider as mandated by the COP. Now, looking at two of these actions, the first really that both relate to guidance, to collect available information on national and other ESM standards and practices, and to develop generic guidance. These two mandates were given to the group, and as a result, the group decided to split itself into smaller groups, whereby groups of experts will develop these practical manuals dealing with various topical areas related to ESM, and these are available on the slide, so I won't go through them each in detail. So these manuals, they'll be short practical manuals, as I said, and drafts of which will be available for first comment at the second meeting of the group. Next, the COP requested the group to identify ESM elements and develop practical guidance in relation to certain waste streams. Now, it didn't specify which waste streams, but the group discussed this and decided on a priority list of waste streams, which of course is in relation to the strategic plan of the Basel Convention, which had already covered this issue. And it was decided that in terms of action in this area, information fact sheets would be prepared on each of these waste streams. And this work is to be carried out by the Secretariat through the retention of a consultant, and again, reviewed at the second meeting of the group. Next, a fairly straightforward information gathering exercise was requested. So to gather both training and information sources on ESM. Again, a consultant will be retained to compile this information, and this information will be reported to the expert working group at its next meeting, and it can decide how to take that forward. Very importantly, the COP pointed out that the private sector has to be actively involved in implementing and investing in environmentally sound management. Now, the group discussed this and considered that the private sector observers of the meeting would be the best to take this initiative forward. So it was agreed that the group, under the leadership, actually one of the co-chairs is here, or was, Mr. Ross Bartley from BIR, would develop a document for consideration by the group at its next meeting, covering what sort of incentives could be given to the private sector to encourage them to make these much needed investments for ESM. Now, that really covers the short-term initial work items that the group decided on at its first meeting. Next is the longer-term strategy for implementing ESM, and to this end, the group did discuss a longer-term work program. As I mentioned before, this work program, as it has to be endorsed by the 12th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, which isn't until May of 2015. This is a longer-term plan, which really is for actions implemented after that time. The previous COP had very helpfully suggested priority areas for this work program, and those are available on the screen. For example, ensuring a consistent interpretation of ESM, again, private sector, encouraging the private sector, those sorts of aspects. With regard to the work program, it was decided by the group. They did certainly make a very good start on this longer-term program, but really it's a living document that will be developed over the coming year at this and successive meetings of the group and intersessionally. Very importantly, it will be presented at OEWG in September and COP12 for consideration and adoption. Right, so just to recap, there's going to be a lot of work going on in the coming few months. In terms of intersessional work, we have the pilot projects, the work of the small groups developing these practical manuals on key topical areas of ESM. We have a consultant developing waste stream fact sheets and collating information on training and general information on ESM. We also have the private sector observers who will pull together this information on private sector incentives, and the group will be considering its draft work program intersessionally. So a very busy time. All of this work really has to be significantly progressed before the next meeting of the group, which will take place either at the end of May or early June. The exact dates will be decided later this month. And really the objective of that meeting will be to consider these many ongoing work streams and to plan next steps. Also importantly, the group will at that time prepare its report to the open-ended working group, the 9th meeting, which will take place in September. Right. I should just add before I finish off, I mean, that was quite a quick overview of what was a very successful and very productive meeting. So I'm happy to take questions on any of those specific outcomes. I should just add that the report of the meeting will be available in the coming weeks. So that will provide a really good information source for those who want to dig deeper. And also this presentation will be made available to all participants after the webinar. So with that, I will wrap up and hand back to Dan. Thank you.